welcome back to my channel. I hope that you are doing good today, this afternoon. It's a little bit later in the afternoon, so I hope that you are doing well. And yeah, we're back for another video. And actually, this one is kind of heartbreaking. And it was heartbreaking when it happened, and it's heartbreaking now, even when I'm thinking about it. It's also a story that really went viral at the time that the case actually happened. And this is the other story today. If you remember, I had said earlier that we were looking at a couple of stories today that were probably in the Law and Order-esque area of things. Well, this is the other video. Also, it's extremely hot out here, and I think it's messing a little bit with our connections as well. So if I'm a little bit shaky in the viewing, or it's not completely clear, hopefully you can hear me with no problem. But just, bear with me, just bear with the situation. There's not much I can do about it at the moment. So, but it should even itself out. But yeah, back to this story coming up. Again, this one, I was so shocked when I saw it. I was actually working on another story a few days ago when I came across this one, and it kind of just slid under the radar. Maybe because it was such a hard charging type of case. It was extremely emotional. It did last quite some time, if I recall, being on the news, through the trial time. And it was just so many things going on. I believe they had 48 hours on it, a dateline on it as well, maybe even a 2020. So it definitely was one of those cases, and really also a reminder of what we're dealing with now in the season, being summer and it's hot, and we need to really make sure we're taking care of ourselves, make sure that we are staying hydrated and not leaving our pets and our children unattended and in the car in these super hot temperatures. And unfortunately, we still see some of those stories. I think that there was one not too long ago where someone again left their kids in the car. Now, mind you, it's been announced so many times to stop doing that because the temperatures that are on the outside, it exorbitantly goes up when you're sitting in the car, and it's hot out here. So yeah, it's just so unfortunate when you hear stories like that. But this is definitely one. So once we get into it, you're probably going to recognize it. If not, then just kind of sit back and just take it all in, because it is quite interesting how the turn of events of this case actually unfolded. And I did see quite a bit of it myself during the active trial, not every day like it was pretty much on, I think, almost every day, but I did get a chance to see quite a bit of it. And I thought once the end results, the verdict, the sentence, and all that stuff had played out, that probably wouldn't hear too much more about that particular situation. And then here we go. We're hearing something else more about that situation. So yeah, welcome back again. And make sure that you are subscribed if you haven't already been subscribed, because I've got more stories coming out, and also want to make sure that you're catching up on the ones that I already did, the last couple of them actually, and some, it's enough to binge. So so maybe we should go ahead and get started with this case. And yeah, I mean, it's just insane. When I saw it, I just was literally my mouth dropped, because I just couldn't believe that here we go. I thought that it was done and that there was nothing else to be said about the situation, but I guess I was wrong. I don't know if anyone else, really caught a hold of it as well, because it seemed like it really just slipped under the radar. So, but again, like I said, it was one of those cases. So maybe that's why they just no fanfare, and that's what it was. So yeah, remember him? Yeah. Take that in for just a second. And let's get into this story. All right. According to WBAL TV and AP Associated Press, they are sharing that the Georgia father was freed from prison 10 years after his toddler unalived in a hot car, which led to the unalived case. And of course, I'm changing a few of the words. You've been on YouTube for quite a long time now. You know that we want to adjust with some of the verbiage on here. So bear with me as I go through this story. But here's what the latest is that's being shared. A father from Georgia has been released. You heard me correctly, released from prison 10 years after his toddler passed away in a hot car. A case that made global headlines after prosecutors accused him of unaliving him. Justin Ross Harris was freed on Sunday, Father's Day. Let me just go back and say it again. Justin Ross Harris was freed on Sunday, Father's Day, as if insult on top of insult on top of insult could not be expressed anymore. I digress. He was released from the Macon State Prison. Georgia Department of Corrections records show. He began serving his sentence on December 6, 2016. Harris had moved from Tuscaloosa, Alabama to the Atlanta area for work in 2012. He told police that on the morning of June 18, 2014, he forgot to drop off his 22-month-old son, Cooper, at a daycare. Instead, he drove straight to his job as a web developer for the Home Depot and left the child in his car seat, he told investigators. Cooper died after sitting for about 7 hours in the backseat of the Hyundai Tucson SUV outside his father's office in the suburban Atlanta, where temperatures that day reached at least into the high 80s. At trial, prosecutors put forth a theory that Harris was miserable in his marriage and unalived his son so he could be free. They presented evidence of his extramarital sex activities, including exchanging sex explicit messages and graphic photos with women and girls and meeting some of them for sex. Harris was found guilty in November 2016 on 8 counts, including malice unaliving. A judge sentenced him to life without parole. Let me repeat that. He was originally sentenced to life without parole, as well as 32 more years in prison for other crimes. Life without parole, plus 32 more years. But the Georgia Supreme Court voted 6-3 to overturn his unaliving and child cruelty convictions in June of 2022, saying the jury saw evidence that was extremely and unfairly prejudicial. Prosecutors said at the time that he would not face another trial over Cooper passing. The Cobb County District Attorney's Office, which prosecuted the case, said in a statement that it disagreed with the majority's decision, but because of that ruling, prosecutors said crucial evidence about Harris's motive was no longer available for them to use. Harris's lawyer have always maintained that he was a loving father and that the boy's unaliving was a tragic accident. Though it dismissed the unaliving conviction, the state Supreme Court upheld Harris's convictions on 3 sex crimes committed against a 16-year-old girl that Harris had not appealed. He continued serving time on those crimes until Sunday, Father's Day, when he was released from prison. Harris's case drew an extraordinary amount of attention, making headlines around the world and sparking debates online and on cable news shows. After determining that pretrial publicity had made it too hard to find a fair jury in Cobb County and suburban Atlanta, the presiding judge agreed to relocate the trial to Brunswick on the Georgia coast. And there you have it, my friends. 10 years is what he got. I don't know about you, but I'm just shocked, quite frankly. I'm really, really, really shocked that took place. I just can't believe that he's out. And then the fact that he was out on Father's Day, this past Father's Day, really, truly added more insult to injury, as if there wasn't enough. Right now, I remember watching, like I said, this case over the time frame that it was actually aired. And I mean, there was a lot of evidence that was shown, a lot of evidence. And if you actually watched the trial yourself, you would have seen some of the things that were there. Now, there was a lot of information, I believe, that they shared about, text messages, computer searches, and all types of things. So when it came down to the actual verdict being read, it made sense that this is where he was going to be going, that he was found guilty, and that he was going to then quickly and promptly be imprisoned. And then, of course, waiting on bated breath as the results were coming in, or the verdict was coming in for the sentencing and how much time he was going to get. you know I think everybody was pretty much like, yeah, it seemed appropriate, and at the end of the day, he was going to be gone. And so when we see this, and I think there was a little bit of rumblings about the case, probably around the time that they're saying that things were overturned, but not much was made about the situation, right? Not a lot of to do was. And I really feel like, because it was such a viral case and it was such a hard charging one, obviously, and it was what led it to be, kind of kept under, I guess, the rug, or just wasn't as aired as much as it was prior. But I was really, really shocked, and I would really love to know your thoughts. What you think about that. Or were you shocked? Are you shocked? I mean, 10 years. It's insane. So basically what they're saying is all of the evidence that was associated with all of the things, such as the searches that he had did, the SEX elements, they felt that obviously that was maybe too much put into the case, but yet that was what it appeared to me as someone watching it as well, is that it was a lot of the basis, the build-up basis as to why things had unfolded the way that they did. And, it's really, really sad. I mean, I know that, sometimes we can be absent-minded about things. And so this is, obviously a very heartbreaking case. It's a very sensitive situation. And, it's just, there were so many things about that case that was actually presented that really made you, kind of just have a raised eyebrow about the whole situation. And so it just seemed like what was determined at that time was appropriate for what had taken place. And yeah, so it was just really shocking. Don't know if, obviously where he's going to go from this point on, if he's going to stay in Georgia or go back to Alabama or whatever. But yeah, it's doesn't obviously bring back the little boy, but it still just seems so, I don't know, just seems so. I'm just, again, shocked. And then, of course, the whole Father's Day thing. I mean, it's like you couldn't pick another day. I mean, I don't know. That's just my thoughts, my feelings. I would love to know yours. So please make sure you drop those down in the comment section. But yeah, I mean, again, it seems like this type of situation has to be reiterated every single year. And the bottom line is temperatures are getting worse as far as heat index is concerned. They're not getting cooler, it's getting hotter. I mean, there's places literally on fire, and so the thought of thinking that it would be okay to just leave any, form of life, whether it's a pet or a child, in the car like that, it just doesn't really pass much logic, or it doesn't make much sense. And, it also can, adhere to, if, looking at the connection of the situation, when you look at the vehicle and you see there's not much distance between the front seat and the back seat. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe they even shared that there might have been some film footage shown that, he had actually went back to the car during that time. And it may have been a couple hours, maybe less. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back into the case files and see whatever's public, if it is, to find out. Pretty sure we can Google it and find some, information on some of the things that was actually at least presented, whether, they said it was or wasn't for the defense side. But it was just really, really unfortunate, that when you started hearing all these things play about, you're just like, how is it possible that you could have forgotten him in there? And even if you did forget for a few minutes, when you came back out, right, if all things, if that's all that happened, and like I said, I believe that they had footage of that, camera footage that was presented in case, which leads to how we got to the point of the life plus 32 years. But it just seems so, I don't know, just so unreal at that point to not have had any moment or any inkling that's, something didn't feel right. Like, the tasking of him that morning was to take his son to the daycare. So you had your son with you when you put him in the car and you took off. And I do believe that they had footage showing that he actually went to Chick-fil-A to get some breakfast as well. And you had your son with you in tow, in hand with him inside the restaurant, if I remember correctly. And then you go back to the car, and there isn't but a very short amount of distance between his location of where he worked and this Chick-fil-A. So how in those time frames could you have forgotten that your whole child was sitting in the back seat? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. It didn't pass a lot of the logic to a lot of us. And so knowing that the reason why he is no longer in is because of some unlikable information, that was probably, I would say, most likely presented as a foundation as to why things took place. I'm just flabbergasted. I don't even know another word for it. I'm just shocked by it. And so, but definitely, prayers and thoughts continue with the family, because this is a great loss, was a great loss, is a great loss, will be a great loss for generations in life to come. There's a little boy who was here and now is not, because of such a unfortunate or reckless, whichever side you're on that plate situation. And it's just really sad. It really is sad. And so, yeah, definitely my thoughts continue to go out to the family members, and, hopefully they will find some peace within day to day. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a new normal, right? You don't get over this. So it's just really disheartening. I don't know if we'll get much commentary in regards to the aftermath and of his release. Don't know if there'll be another 2020 or 48 hours or Dateline or something of that nature where there'll be conversation about it. Don't know if the family's going to come back out and speak on the fact that he's been released. Sometimes what I enjoy about watching Dateline in 2020 is as cases had different changes or outcomes that were different from the previous. If it had been previously aired, they'll go back and air an update. I don't know if we'll get that with this particular situation, but undoubtedly it is a very sensitive and heartbreaking situation. So, I guess we'll just have to see what will come of that. And if they do decide to re-air an update to this situation, I'll probably, kind of share it with you guys and, get your thoughts and see if you've seen it and if you're aware of that as well, since we're talking about it now. But yeah, I would definitely love to know your thoughts about the, what do you think about him being freed after only 10 years, after literally having a sentence of life plus 32 years? And, the reason being is that they wanted to throw out, the information basically of what was the foundation of what happened. So at this point, what was left was just some other almost like unrelated situations to why they were actually in court. Now, I'm not sure if those things with the 16-year-old girl, if that was revealed through the process of, the evidence being collected for the actual situation of the unaliving of the little boy. Not sure. I think that might be how that came about, when through discovery and all of that stuff. So at the end of the day, it almost seems like that's probably the only thing that he was charged with. Maybe a couple other charges in there as well. But yeah, it's just so interesting how sometimes the debate happens. So yeah, just really got to make sure, again, like I always say, to be mindful of, look out for each other and just make sure that we all are checking in and, just making sure everybody's okay, because, this was such a tragic situation that seemed so, really just unnecessary, and I know accidents can and do happen. But when you listen to all of the things that were brought about in a trial, it just, I don't know, it's not your normal run-of-the-mill situation. And then again, this happened in, I believe, 2014. And so by the time this all wrapped up with the verdict and sentencing was by 2016, we've been talking about the situation and the safety issue when it comes to living, live beings, whether children or animals or whatever, in hot cars. I mean, this is not a new thing. So again, here we go with was it just total absent-mindedness rather? I mean, clearly it was absenteeism, right? But was there absent-mindedness? What was the situation there? And honestly, I don't really remember really what he was saying. I mean, just other than, no, I didn't do this on purpose kind of thing. And I don't know. I'd have to literally go back into the maybe a couple of the older shows that actually aired it, or see if I can get some information just to find out again, to refresh my memory again. Because I really thought this, this guy was done. I didn't think we would ever hear about this ever again. And even with the rumblings that I heard before, it was enough for me to obviously go back and check and see what was going on, because there's just no way I was thinking that he would be released. But here you have it. That's what took place. So, yeah, again, let me know your thoughts. Go ahead and do those down in the comment section. If you are happened upon this video and you haven't subscribed, I hope that you will consider and then do subscribe and become part of the family. I would so appreciate you doing so. And, I'd also, if you wouldn't mind, leaving me a like on the video as well on your way out. I so appreciate it. And yeah, I will be coming back with another video for today. So be sure to make sure you have your notification bell on as well, so you don't miss that. And yeah, I think with that, I'm going to bid you adieu for this video, and I will see you in a few hours, maybe a little less than a few hours. Okay, well, you take care, and until then, bye.